All right, cool. Let's kick it off. So we have some exciting things to show. Each product group has been working really hard on a big feature. So big props to everyone. Kind of both Endpoint Ops and MDM were working on features that required the entire product group to kind of swarm on the feature to get it done in a sprint. So great collaboration and teamwork on that. First up on Endpoint Ops, I think we'll probably be demoing the fleet in your calendar, which is an exciting new feature and kind of first of its kind feature in the space. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Sharon and Endpoint Ops.
Thank you, Luke. And as you said, both teams worked on a lot of stuff that will probably be a challenge to present in this time slot that we have. So I'm asking everyone to be as efficient as possible. And we will start with a set of videos that will roughly take 30 minutes on the fleet in your calendar. So let me share my screen, share sound as well. And we will start with this video.
Fleet policies empower organizations to keep their hosts safe and compliant. When hosts fail policies, IT and security are often forced to nudge them to make remediating changes, a situation likely as familiar as it is disliked org-wide. Have you ever had Nudge blur your screen while presenting your magnum opus? Maybe your CEO was once kicked from a Zoom meeting with the board, and now they, likely the most attacker-targeted person in the company, don't have to keep Zoom up to date? With Fleet in your calendar, Fleet will do what any respectful coworker would. Find a good time in your calendar to schedule remediation.
On the Fleet app, an admin can click on their settings and navigate to the Integrations tab. Under that tab, they will see a new Calendars option where we provide step-by-step instructions on how to configure the Google Calendar API with Fleet. Here, you can see a Google admin going through the flow of steps 1 through 3. On the Google Cloud Platform, they navigate to the Service Accounts page to create a new project. Our instructions provide all the details for the required fields to create the new project. Directly after, they will also create a new service account. Once both the project and service account are created, in step 4, the Google admin will then create an API key. This API key will be downloaded as a JSON file. In step 5, a Fleet admin can then paste the downloaded API key JSON. In addition, they will also enter their organization's domain name. The domain name is what Fleet uses to determine user email addresses used for the calendar integration. Once saved to Fleet, a Google admin can then follow instructions on step 6. This will authorize the service account using Google's domain-wide delegation. They will be pasting both the client ID and OAuth scopes. Once authorized, in step 7, a Google admin can then enable the Google Calendar API for integration with Fleet. And now we are ready for a Fleet admin to choose which policies the Google Calendar API will listen for.
Okay. Third video. I will try to mute myself so that you don't hear me drinking coffee. Tell me if it loses the sound.
Okay, let's go through an example of managing calendar automations at the team level. So here I have a team, a calendar demo team, and I am logged in as an admin to this calendar demo team. And we have 2 hosts, and we can look at these 2 hosts. One is a laptop, and another is a virtual machine that's running macOS 13.4.1. I have the virtual machine here. As you can see, 13.4.1, it is enrolled in MDM. And if we go to policies, we can configure calendar automations over here on this Manage Automations button. And we have calendar events and other workflows. So other workflows contain integrations with webhooks or ticket systems such as Jira or Zendesk. So this is previous functionality, so it's now under other workflows. And the new calendar events are over here. So as a team admin, I can enable these calendar events. I can also enable them as a global admin or as a GitOps user. So in order to enable these calendar events, I would just take this enabled button and I would put the webhook over here that's going to be triggered. And then I select which policy I want to enable it for. So let's just, for the sake of example, enable another one, but we're going to leave it disabled because I wanted to explain a couple more things. And we save it. So what's going to happen is that an event is going to be created on my calendar once a cron job runs on the Fleet server, which happens every 5 minutes. So this is one way you can enable them through the GUI. Another way to enable them is to use Fleet Control Apply or Fleet Control GitOps. So let's show a Fleet Control GitOps configuration. So here I have my calendar demo team. This is basically the entire configuration for the team. It's got my secret for enrolling. And here is where I have the settings for the Google Calendar integration. I have this, I enable them, I set the webhook. And to select which policies are going to be enabled for calendar events, it is done in the policy array down here. So here I have a new policy that checks whether my OS version is up to date. So I want my OS version to be 14.4 or later. It's only running on Mac OS. I got description, I got a resolution, and the SQL query that will run basically where I just check the OS version table for major and minor versions. And this is what's new. We have each policy has a calendar events enabled Boolean, which can be true or false. And so now we're setting, we're enabling calendar events in the policy itself. So by default, this is disabled. So I have in my GitOps config, I only have one policy enabled. So let's go back here. So here I have it disabled. I have it only one. Let's just, for a second of example, let's see. Can we save this? Save. Okay, it's disabled, 2 are saved. So I'm just going to demonstrate how this is going to work in Fleet GitOps. So build Fleet Control. So I'm going to run a Fleet Control command. I'm using a local build in my Fleet Control. GitOps -f file, and I know my files are in Fleet GitOps IT and security, and I have under teams, I have calendar demo team, and that's the file I just showed. So I'm going to do a dry run first. It's good. So I'm going to do a real run. And now if I go back here, let's just refresh it. I go under Manage Automations, Calendar Events, and we see that it is enabled, and it is just enabled for that single policy. So let's go to my calendar and see if this cron job already ran. So it's going to create a calendar event on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. So next month is April, so it's going to create an event on April 16th. So normally this runs every 5 minutes, but to speed things up for demonstration purposes, I can manually kick it off using fleet control trigger name calendar. And this is going to trigger a job on the fleet server that will look at the failing policies, and if there needs to be a calendar event scheduled, it's going to schedule it on the user's calendar. So the event is scheduled. Before taking a look at the event, I just want to cover that hosts can have emails associated with them. So they're either pulled from a few places, such as a Google Chrome profile. They can also be manually assigned to a machine. So in this case, this virtual machine is, I manually assigned it using an API to my email. So this is, so it knows to create the calendar event on the calendar associated with this email. So the calendar event is over here. So it is created in the calendar's time zone between 9 and 5. And it tries to find an open spot. And if no open spots are found, then it creates an event at 4:30, basically the last time slot between 9 and 5. So if we open up the event, this is what the event looks like. The intention is for the user to leave their device powered on and then walk away from the device, because during that time, a remediation script is going to run, whether it's an MDM command or something else. So there's a warning that there could be an automated restart, which will happen for this demonstration. So I actually have a Tines workflow set up, and I'll go through this Tines workflow. So we have our calendar webhook over here. So just high level, this Tines workflow is going to go ahead and update the device to the latest Mac OS. So we have the webhook over here, and this is the webhook URL that I put in the config, right, in the calendar config over here. So we receive this webhook, and then over here we check for an error, and we simply look for to see if there's an error field in the body that's not empty. And this is just a stub right now. I don't have, for this example, I don't have error handling logic in here. On this trigger, I see whether we have a, whether the OS update policy is failing. So we use some functions that are available in Tines, such as find. So we have an array of failing policies that we go through, and then out of each of those, I'm looking for an item ID 479, which is the policy ID. And then basically I wrap it in an if statement to make it return true if it found a policy ID 479. So the policy ID we're interested in is this one, OS version up to date. An easy way to find the policy is to simply click on it, and then you see up here in the URL 479. So this checks if one of the failing policies was the OS update policy. Then what we need to do is we need to get the host ID that comes in the webhook, and we'll take a look at the exact contact on the webhook once this runs. we get the host ID, and we call this API endpoint on our Fleet server because we're trying to get the UUID, which is going to be needed for the next step to run the MDM command. So the next step, we actually build our MDM payload, and let's see if I can expand this. So this is an MDM command. This is a command called schedule OS update. And schedule OS update can be found if you just Google schedule OS update MDM, and it'll give similar text. And then you can follow these links for the details of these key values. So the important thing to note is, in our case, we're using install ASAP, which will, what it will do is it will download the OS update. Then it will apply it, and then a little pop-up will come up with a 60-second timer, after which the computer will restart. There are other options, such as just download, and there's like a force update as well that forces a restart. So we got install ASAP, and then we have, we're looking for a specific version. In this case, we're going to install 14.4.1. Another thing this command needs is a unique identifier. And for this example, we simply call a times function to give us a unique identifier. So we built this command. After that, we simply base64 encoded, which is needed for the Fleet API. And then we actually call this Fleet API endpoint, Fleet commands run, and we pass it the base64 encoded command that was coming from this event, and then we give it the host UUID, which we got when we called get host over here. One thing to note is the Fleet server, once it fires the webhook, if this URL is not accepting a connection at this time, if it's down or returns an error, the Fleet server will retry until it gets a non-400 error response. All right, so let's actually see if we can get this webhook triggered. So let's go back to our calendar. And one thing to note about this calendar is the event gets created on the user's primary calendar. There's always a primary calendar associated with the user. The user could move this event around, and every 30 minutes, the Fleet server will check to see if the event has been moved. So it's not real time, it's about every 30 minutes. If the event is deleted, Fleet server will reschedule the event on the next day, from, I believe, from the date that it was last seen. So let's try to move it to today. So we're going to edit the event and we're going to move it to today. To today, 28th. Let's go to today. And we're going to move it. We're going to move it to right now. So as I mentioned before, the Fleet server checks every 30 minutes whether the event has been moved. So instead of us waiting all this time, I can do a little trick. So I can go to the calendar events table, and I see the details of this event in the database, and I'm just gonna change the updated at time. Let's see our, let's log back into our VM. Okay, it's here, VM. Our times workflow is here. And then we're just going to trigger the calendar event. So now the expectation is that we will see, the Fleet server is going to ask the host to rerun the failing policy just to make sure it's still failing. And then the Fleet server is going to send the webhook pause this for a second. Looks like it went through. I didn't see it in times, but it did go through. And we have this alert that we're restarting our computer. I'm gonna cancel it. So for this command, the user could cancel the restart, but normally it would be downloaded, applied, which takes a while, and then this pop-up, the restart pop-up, will come up. Since I was already testing it, it has already downloaded the OS from previous testing. We can look at the commands through Fleet Control. Fleet Control get MDM commands. And we can see that this command was sent, the schedule OS update. So let's go back to times. Okay, it did update now. So I guess this update sometimes doesn't happen in real time, the numbers. So let's go through and look at, see actually what happened in the webhook. Okay, so we got the webhook, and we can look at the body. We got timestamp, the host ID, host serial number, and a list of failing policies. And this is the policy that was failing. This is the only one we configured to run. Then next step, we did this check. We went back and we got the host, and the host returned the host results. A lot of details. The main one we're interested in is the UUID. That's right here. Then we created the MDM payload. We encoded it and we sent it. We sent it back to Fleet, and we got back a 200 from Fleet. All right, that concludes my presentation. Thanks.
So I'm gonna show how the calculating your calendar feature works behind the scenes. We have a very high-level workflow here on what happens, how events are created and handled on the Fleet side. So it all starts with the user configuring their policies and webhook URLs and everything related to calendar on Fleet, and then there will be a cron job that will run every 5 minutes. Practically will run every time because we need to check when events are happening right now. And this cron job, you can think of this workflow as running for every host in your team, right? So the first thing that this cron job will do for every host is check if it's failing any policies. If it's not failing any policies, then this is a healthy device. We just need to check if this user on the device has a calendar event created. If they have one, we just remove it, right? Because the device is healthy. If they don't have a calendar event, there's nothing to do. The device is healthy, so we're good to go there. The other scenario is, okay, the host is failing policies. So this device is not healthy. And the one thing we check here is there any human behind the device? If there's no human behind the device, there's nothing we can do. We just end the processing. But if there is a human, and Fleet knows how to detect this from like Google Chrome profile table and a few other ways to get this data, then we check the following, which is, does the user have a calendar event? If they don't have a calendar event, we're going to create one for the user on the third Tuesday of the month. If you are past the third Tuesday of the month, we create it for the next month. So again, we reached this point because the host was failing policies, has an email associated to it, like there's a human, and there was no calendar event created, so we create one. In the scenario where there is an existing event, we need to check if the user deleted or moved the event. Because Fleet needs to know, for example, if the user is off on Tuesday, and they probably moved the downtime event to Monday, right? So Fleet will check that and will make sure that it accounts for that. And the next question in the diagram is the calendar event started? So imagine this squad is running on a third Tuesday of the month, and it's the time to run the remediation for this host. Then if again, this no path is basically like, no, the event hasn't started, right? So there's nothing to do. But if the event is happening right now and the host is offline, there's nothing we can do. I mean, we're done here because the user probably forgot and turned off the computer or something. But if the host is online, we're going to refetch policies, and we're going to refetch policies just to make sure that we're not running this in case the user fixed their issues, remediated the policies like 5 minutes ago. So we check the policies. This is like an optimization here. And if the policies are still failing after refetching them on the device, we fire a webhook. And in this scenario, the administrator can set up a webhook server where they can run scripts to remediate the user device. And that's about it at a high level how Fleet Calendar works. Thank you.
So this was the set of videos. I'm sure there are a lot of questions which can be routed into our Slack channel, but if anyone has any quick question for now, feel free to ask the team. If not, we can move on. So I would like to say that, as Luke mentioned, this was a full team effort. And when I say full team, I mean including the product team, which gave us a lot of help and directions. So thank you very much, product team, Rachel and Noah, and everyone from the Endpoint Ops team. And let's move on to the next thing. Rachel, take it, please.
Yeah. Tim, did you want to do anything on load testing your slides real quick?
I don't know if anyone has any questions. Well, we asked everyone to kind of sit through a lot. If you have any questions on load, I can give you some quick metrics. At 20,000 hosts with individual user accounts, creating 20,000 calendar events is about 30 minutes. Deleting 20,000 calendar events was about 15 minutes. Again, that's with 20,000 users. And that's largely due to Google's API rate limiting at about 600 requests per minute. Google does provide a link. I can drop it in the chat here on requesting a higher quota. So some customers might find that valuable. But load testing is still in progress. We're still working on breaking a lot of things.
Tim, this is Brock. Is that assuming that there would be one calendar event created per policy per computer, or like, you know, what if someone was out of whack on 5 policies instead of 1?
Gotcha. Number of policies does not matter, actually. If you're failing any of the policies in the dropdown, I might be able to show my computer if you want, show my screen, but it's one calendar. It's not one calendar event per policy. It's one calendar event per, what do we say it?
Per
fleet
user.
server, per user, yeah. So you could have five policies. 4 of them are passing, 1 of them is failing, you will get that calendar event. Only if all 5 policies are passing, you will not get a calendar event.
Thank you, team. I apologize, I forgot there was a non-video part of the load test. Thank you, team and everyone. And we have 2 items by Rachel, and then Rachel and Lucas. Take it, Rachel.
Awesome. So these parts are quick. Most of our dev efforts for features were in the calendar feature. I just want to show you guys that we have a new little checkbox that we made. So if you go to Teams, workstations, now if you have a checkbox, you can keep that tooltip still showing if that checkbox is disabled. So this is a new feature that we just added. And then the second thing we added was a joint effort of me and Lucas. It was mostly Lucas doing this. But we added software, which is now including VS Code extensions. So I'm going to have my VS Code open here. I can see my extensions. Maybe I try ESLint, and if I search for that, you can see that it will have this kind of format. So like the maker in VS Code -ESLint, and you can see the type IDE extension VS Code show up. So you can do all the things that you can with any other software with your VS Code extensions. Click on them, view all hosts, see the version number should be matching the version up here, and all that fun jazz. And that's it.
Thank you, Rachel. And next is Rachel and Lucas, joint item.
Oh, that was the joint item.
Oh, that Lucas didn't present.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can share a few things around this feature like in 2 minutes. Is that okay? Just some underlying things around VS Code extensions. So as Rachel said, we're now using, so let me just try real quick here, that we have a starting OS query 511. We have a new table. Sorry, looking for. We have a new table called VS Code extensions. So this provides, as expected, the extensions installed on the device for all users. So by running this query, you get this kind of data, which is location of extension and a bunch of other data. Currently, as a name, we have the extension ID. This can be improved later, right? If you go to the extension here and you pick one, let's pick the Python one. The name is Python, right? But if you copy the extension ID right here, that's what we see from OS query. So as an improvement in the future, we could get this name from the JSON that the device has. But currently, we use the identifier on the name. That's why you see that there. And there's one more thing. We had to make this compatible with OS query versions that do not support this table. And we do this by running the query with a feature that OS query supports that's called discovery table. So if this table doesn't work because it doesn't exist, nothing will break. You just don't ingest extensions on that device. We have to make this, otherwise we're breaking every device that doesn't have this table. And then again, we had to do some effort to get some CPE matching for some of these devices. So like we expected some of the CVEs reported on the MVD for extensions, and we try to match as much as we can. And we tested that, for example, CVE on the Python extension was detected and so on. We went almost one by one. There aren't many, but there are a few that are important to cover. And yeah, basically you can see here VS Code Vim. If we go here, you will see now that we are now getting the CPE for this extension. The CPE for this extension has this format where you have the name of the extension and then the that it runs. This is the target software. It runs on Visual Studio Code. Instead of the operating system, it shows the actual software there. And yeah, I mean, again, future work. There's other stuff we could add to the OS query table. One of them being, for example, you have these labels, for example, machine learning, right? We could add this functionality to be returned in the OS query table, and then Fleet could use that, for example, to get, okay, how many machines are using machine learning extensions, right? But again, this is future work and requires some OS query changes. Yeah, that's about it.
Great, thank you, Rachel and Lucas. And Luke, back to you. This concludes the feature items for Endpoint Ops, and we'll go back with the improvements after MDM team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Endpoint Ops. Great, great demos. Great videos. That was really polished and professional looking. It's amazing how much how refined the demos are getting the more we do this every sprint after dozens of it at this point, or at least a dozen. All right, next up we also have some big features on the MDM side, so over to George and MDM group.
All right, I'll be kicking us off first with a little demonstration. Mine first, I'm just going over some settings that I didn't show in the video by accident. But this is a enforced password length by 10 characters, and then we'll go to the setup in the video we're going to watch here. So I've set up Okta. I learned that developer Okta accounts are free, and so I've set that all up with an integration here. So set up to my server on dragonlimit.com, and then we've got some of the attributes here, display name and email set. So now going over to our settings in Fleet, we've got it all set up with the correct IDP enabled setting. And we've got user authentication on, and the setup assistant I left off for release device manually. So now Fleet is automatically going to release the device after the profiles are installed. Let's see, what else is the checklist on here that got added? But here we go. We've got the demo of the newly wiped device logging into the Okta integration, getting the sample EULA that I, of course, agreed to, sell my soul to. And then from here on out, it's all server work to make sure that those profiles are installed, and we've got the attributes from the IDP before we allow the user to go ahead and create their account. So then this allows the IT admin to have that locked in. You'll see in just a moment here. So my full name and account name are locked, and I have to put in a password, and I try to put in one that's 9 and tab over, and I get absolutely rejected here. So gotta pick something a little longer and stronger, and then we're good to go. So that is it for the conclusion of the out-of-box experience. And then next up, we've got Roberto showing off DDM profiles.
I go to the host detail.
Yeah, so
I have a virtual machine.
I'll probably just talk through, but I have a virtual machine with without any password requirements. So if I try to change the password requirement, it won't work. I mean, I won't have any limitations.
Roberto, we missed I don't know if you saw the messages in Zoom. We missed, if you gave any intro at the beginning, we missed that chunk because we couldn't hear you.
Just that I have a machine, and if I try to the setup is if I try to change the password, I don't have any requirements really other than what's the default on macOS. So thank you. And what I have here is an example declaration. So declarations are JSON blobs that you can use to configure your macOS settings, and they are going to replace configuration profiles. So this declaration contains different password requirements. You have declarations for many things, and you can even install old profiles using declarations. But yeah, what I'm going to show you here is you can now upload JSON declarations via the UI and the CLI. Here I made a mistake in declaration. We are doing many validations that the JSON profile is valid and so on. So as soon as I upload the declaration, the counts for profiles go to pending. The declarations are treated exactly as profiles. You can track the status of an individual host based on the declarations and the profiles. As soon as the host receives the declaration, it goes to verifying, and we are also doing a double check, not using OS Query, but we are verifying that the declaration has been applied. And here you can see that now I have, I don't know if you will be able to see it clearly in the video, but now I have a bunch of requirements that I set for the password if I try to change it. So yeah, and then for completeness here, I'm going to delete the declaration, and it's going to get to eventually get removed. Same, you can filter hosts by their state, and it's going to be eventually removed and go back to verified. And so this contains all the protocol implementations for declarations, which will allow us to send things like us updates and yeah, very fancy stuff. And that's it. Yeah, I want to note that everything that I showed using the UI can be used using the GitHub flow as well. Just show the UI because it's more visual.
Thank you, Roberto. So yeah, the big two ones that we've focused on was the out-of-box experience updates and the DDM. And DDM was a major team effort to lay all the foundation work to help us support DDM going forward. All right, back to you, Lou.
Awesome. Great work, team. Thank you. And over to Endpoint Ops for improvements and bug fixes.
Okay, thank you, Luke. And we'll start with Rachel with a few items.
All right, hey guys, I'm just gonna go over some bug fixes I was able to get to this sprint. The first one, a customer actually noticed if you go to your queries. Yeah, sorry, I was already clicked on there. And what they noticed was their live queries was not sorting properly for numerical data. And so I ended up finding different places throughout our UI that was not sorting correctly because all of our query data is returned as strings. And so I had to rebuild it for these table columns to recognize which ones are strings and which ones are numerical data based on our OS query and fleet schema JSON. So now you can see in a bunch of tables, if you have a number, for example, PID or whatever. I had a good example on here. UID, do I see UID on here? I thought it was on here. Yeah, but basically, these are now being sorted correctly. Same thing when you run your live query, you'll also see that these headers, these columns are going to be sorted correctly. This was my example, so I don't know why. Oh, here's my UID. Here we go. Yeah, so now they're sorted correctly. Before you could see like the number 4 would go in between 296 and 441, which was incorrect. So it's no longer being sorted as strings if it is a type number, which we have various type numbers in our database. Let's see, what else did we add? Oh yeah, and the same thing with policies. So if you run a policy, you can see that our hosts now are case insensitive. So if you were to change this, let me stop my policy from running. It's now case insensitive, so the letters don't matter if they're capital or lowercase, which is also another fix. What else? This next one was an issue we had with our standard query library platforms not rendering properly in the UI, so that is now fixed. If you have a query from the standard query library that is applied through Fleet Control, the query was, you can see your queries here in documentation, built-in queries. You can import all of these into your fleets. And the issue was that there was a space between each of the platforms. So if there were multiple platforms per query, there was like Linux space, Darwin space, etc. That was not rendering properly in our platform dropdown because the front end did not account for the spaces. So that is now fixed. So you'll see the proper platforms on here. Oh, this was a fun one. So this was one that has been bothering me, and I'm sure a lot of people who demo a lot, but when you are on your Fleet app and you think if you can click on something, you would see a change in your cursor. So I fixed a lot of drop downs that I found that didn't have the cursor change. There was one like row that's actually clickable that didn't have a cursor change, so nobody knew it was clickable. And then my favorite was something that has been there since the dawn of time. Our checkboxes never changed color when you hover over them. And now you can see they turn this beautiful blue, which is something that was on our roadmap for designing, but is now already implemented. So you can see hover states for checkboxes as well. And that's just about it. There's a little bit more styling and typo fixes that were in there, nothing worth mentioning, but yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. And one more shared item with Rachel and Lucas on the cached queries. You want to start, Rachel, or Lucas?
I could start and then Lucas can talk about it. So here we are. If we are looking at a query, I'm going to go back to my one that's already cached. You can see our query report page right here. And when you edit that query, so if I remove this UID or anything that edits this query and you click save, it actually is going to remove its cached results because you changed your query. So what we did, at least what I did, was just add the, are you sure you want to do this part? And Lucas worked on the back end to make sure that it was being reset. If not only you were changing your query SQL, but if you were also changing, or if you were changing your platform, you should actually, that didn't work. I don't know why. No, this is like, hopefully that's not a bug. If you change your platforms and you hit save, you should also get that modal. And then if you change your minimum OS query version as well. So those three changes are the ones that will or should remove this query report and reset it. I don't know, Lucas, if you want to jump in and say anything.
No, that was it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lucas and Rachel. Next, we have a video from Victor fixing 2 bugs.
We were not seeing vulnerabilities. So this has been fixed and it was released as part of the patch. So if I go to Dogfood Software, search for Python, and now we have homebrew packages that people have installed, and you see they're showing up with vulnerabilities. So part of the issue was that homebrew, in the name, they have this @version number. So now we're trying to catch that and special casing that for the homebrew packages. So it matches with a regular Python name. So the second issue I'd like to cover is one in OS Query having to do with float number precision. So I have two machines, and to demonstrate this issue, one has a fix and one does not have a fix. So I'm going to do a live query with a round. So I expect if I round this to 2 digits past the decimal point, I expect 3.53. So if I run this on these two hosts, we will see the results. So as you can see, the bug is over here. It's a precision bug. So in OSquery, when converting from a double to a string, it was not using the right precision. So I do have this fix, but I expect it'll be coming in a future OSquery 5.13.
And thank you, Victor, which is not with us today. And next we have Jacob.
Hey, everybody. So I'll show you this fix, which has to do with the host status webhook UI at both the global and team levels. So the bug was, and it's a bit hard to show the original bug because we did a React upgrade, which means simply checking out the buggy commit doesn't, the UI doesn't build anymore. So you'll just have to take my word that, so for the bug, and I'll describe that now. So in both the global and team host status webhook UI pages, we give the user these kind of predefined options for percentage of hosts and number of days. And again, that's the same for the team level feature. But the user is not restricted to those values when setting via fleetctl or some other method. So the bug was, so here we have, let's see, here we have just two YAMLs that are going to set on the top the Apple's teams host status webhook percentage to 96 and days count to 12, which you can see neither of those are in the predefined options in the UI. And we'll do the same thing for the global setting. So here's the global. So we'll start with the global. Global is called global. So now we'll see that we've got our custom values displayed here. And the bug was we'd be seeing something unclear. I actually forget if it was we were displaying undefined or something very bad UX of some sort here. But now we simply add the custom option to the dropdown, and the user can select around between those. And until they refresh, they still have their custom defined options. But if they refresh the page, they will be presented with the original predefined options. And this was fixed also on the team level. I will save us all some time, and it's the same. It's the exact same situation on the team level. And the rest of the bugs were, I added some URL validation, some padding fixes, and some other smaller fixes that I don't think we have to use everyone's time to demo, but they're in the UI, so I'll pass it on to the next and save us a little time here.
Okay, thank you, Jacob, and thank you, team. Look, that concludes the endpoint ops effort for this sprint.
Great, thank you all. Yeah, as Mike pointed out, some really big improvements there, especially live queries. Over to MDM for improvements and bug fixes.
Awesome. All right. Let's see here. I just have a little bit to talk about for the updates that Dante improved. This was a bug where your Windows servers, in some cases, were still being treated as normal Windows hosts and were attempted to have MDM enrolled. So Dante got to the bottom of where we had discrepancies for host OS versions and fixed that up. And then lastly, this was the critical bug where MDM hosts that were Windows were periodically changing from automatically enrolled to enrolled off. And this was the fact that we determine if you're enrolled in Fleet for Windows MDM based on a registry key value. And the Microsoft documentation has the value for 3 being failed. And so originally when we programmed this meant that we would say it was off in this case. But in actuality, the MDM status and MDM functionality was all still functioning. So this was merely a cosmetic change at this point. And we're still investigating why it would change to that registry value 3. But ultimately, this did fix the customer's problems.
And just to call out real quick on that critical bug, just want to commend the MDM team going from first report of critical bug to critical patch 5 hours later, which is amazing turnaround time. So thank you all.
Yep, thank you so much. And Dante's not here today, but major kudos to him for figuring it out and getting that change to me quickly to be able to build it. And then lastly, we've got Sarah going over a couple of her updates.
Cool. All right, let's talk a few bugs here. We've got first we're getting more mature as a company and as a product category. So as part of our efforts in being a cross-platform MDM, we have improved some of our validations. And one thing I'll just call out here is you're trying to be extra helpful to point our users in the right direction for the fix. So in this case, you wouldn't necessarily know that you have a duplicate name because the file name of the mobile config is bar, but inside the mobile config, the payload display name is actually problematic. So trying to give some resolution in our error messages. The other one, we like it when things fail loudly here at Fleet. It helps us to key in on where problems might be and investigate those. So we take them all very seriously and we dig into them. The estimate here says a 1. To be honest, this one probably ended up being a few, a day or 2 or more of work and investigation and spawned a few other tickets. Yeah, this 500 has been resolved, but we've also, uncovered a few areas of technical debt that we're improving along the way. That's it for me.
Cool. I think George had to step away, so I will see who is next for MDM real quick, which I think that is it. Yeah, that was
sorry,
it.
just got back. That was it for us. Thanks so much.
Awesome. So this is release Scandium Sprint 21, Scandium 4.48.0. We're targeting Monday for that, and we'll announce in general when it is released. Any final questions or thoughts or weekend wisdom before we wrap up?
What's our next element?
Titanium.
I got that in my driver.
I mean, if Tim just asked, he can be Titani Tim.
Already,
I see myself out.
Fast.
Yeah, joke for sure.
Titanium. Okay. Awesome. Let's end it on that note. Thank you all. Great demos today. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.